Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Anshaira binti Muhammad Ridwan. My matric number is A22A0871. For the introduction, we have chosen Onggat Station for this assignment. Onggat Station is a privately owned restaurant that serves foods and drinks to consumers. Onggat Station restaurant has 3 branches in Seri Kembangan, Setapak and Gombak. Therefore, this study will focus on the entrepreneur owner of Onggat Station restaurant, which is Mrs. Anisa, who runs a food and beverage business. For the biodata, her name is Mrs. Anisa binti Ishak. She was born on 18th December 1975 in Kampung Payesok, Temeloh, Pahang, and later she migrated to Selangor after starting a family when she was 24 years old. She is a Malay with Malaysian citizenship. She is 48 years old. How did she start the business? She started a business by opening a branch in Seri Kembangan. Until now, she employs several workers in that branch. The factor which lead to the creation of business, the first one is to help her husband, and the second one is a deep passion for the food industry.
My name is Lakshmanan. My matrix number is 822-80940. We are from group 6. Now I would like to talk about company background of Onggat Station restaurant. Mrs. Anisa serves various types of food from the Onggat Station restaurant, and chicken rice is a main menu in her business. Mrs. Anisa became an entrepreneur in the year of 2008 when she started her first branch with the name of Onggat Station. Entrepreneur Mrs. Anisa extended a company successfully in 2015 by opening a second location with the same menu and restaurant name Onggat Station in Setapak. Mrs. Anisa has the personality of an entrepreneur who has the courage to take the risk. And Mrs. Anisa takes the challenges of risk for opening the third location of the Onggat Station restaurant in Gombak in year 2020. Pon Anisa, a business owner, selected a distinctive name to attract the interest of customers. The Onggat Station restaurant was inspired by the middle name of her husband, which is Encik Nizam. Pon Anisa took the initiative by promoting a restaurant on social media. Now let's see the target customers of Onggat Station restaurant. In a first branch, which is at Seri Kembangan, the target customers of a restaurant is people who works from offices because it is an industrial area. Whereas in a second branch, which is Setapak, it attracts numerous consumers due to its location as a major food hub. And the restaurant Onggat Station in Gombak, Pon Anisa targets customers consisting of students. This is to be said because the location of a restaurant is close to the International Islamic University and boarding school. Now let's see how does Pon Anisa runs the business and how many employees does she have in each branches. She runs the business in a way of social media. She employs this social media strategy to promote the food menu offered in a restaurant, publishing customers' reviews of the food, images of the food and drinks. The strategy of these social media platforms helps Pon Anisa to promote a business globally. For example, people from other countries can get to know more about a restaurant. Entrepreneurs Mrs. Anisa manages and runs a business efficiently and consistently. Mrs. Anisa will continue to devote herself to running a business. Now let's see how many employees does she have in each branches. Mrs. Anisa employs a total of 16 people, including 7 staff members who help her in running a business in Seri Kembangan restaurant, 5 staff members at the Setapak location, and 4 more staff members who assist her running in the Onggat Station restaurant in Gombak. Anis Nuranim, Mrs. Anisa's youngest daughter, also assists her in running the Onggat Station restaurant in Gombak. Thank you.
Worker experience that entrepreneur Mrs. Anisa have done is when she used to sell various lunch to earn money. After SPM, she worked in manufacturing industry in Malacca to help her family. Mrs. Anisa also worked for 2 months at a restaurant. She had the opportunity to learn about restaurant after working there. After that, she started a small business at home. She taking order and preparing the order and deliver it to the customer. She received a lot of response from the customer. She took this opportunity to expand her business by opening a shop. First shop that she opened is at Seri Kembangan. Next, role model. Mrs. Anisa met her father Encik Ishak and Encik Wan as her role model to become a successful entrepreneur. Encik Ishak has a palm oil plantation near his house in Pahang. Encik Ishak is also involved in the livestock industry where he raised cattle and buffalo. He is a person who is committed to running a business as planned. Wan Anisa used her father as an inspiration to continue and increase her ambition to become a more successful entrepreneur. Mrs. Anisa has participated in several workshops and entrepreneurship courses to increase her knowledge about doing business. Mrs. Anisa joined food handling course. This course will embrace all aspects of food and beverage preparation. It is very helpful in knowing how to prepare food correctly, cleanly and safely from food poisoning. This course also able to increase her knowledge about equipment that is encouraged to use and prohibited to be used when preparing food. Next, Mrs. Anisa used to join marketing strategy class. Mrs. Anisa can learn how to put together a marketing strategy to plan business and marketing. Mrs. Anisa learned that to get good marketing, you need to have a good product and a strategic location. Mrs. Anisa always control the quality of recipe nasi ayam to ensure that customers are always satisfied. The location of the store is also very strategic because there are many offices nearby. Intention of being an entrepreneur. Mrs. Anisa became interested in business from a young age. Mrs. Anisa often followed her father, Mr. Ishak, when he was doing a business when she was young. When she was 10 years old, Mrs. Anisa started a business by selling baris line. After SPM, Mrs. Anisa decided to work and also collect money to build her own business. From a young age, she dreamed of becoming a successful entrepreneur. Next, parents background. Mrs. Anisa was born in a family with an entrepreneurial spirit and encouraged business. Mrs. Anisa also met her father as her role model to be her guide in becoming a successful entrepreneur. Mrs. Anisa's mother, Mrs. Rambah binti Osman, is also a diligent person. She is a diligent business person. She always helped her husband, Mr. Ishak, in running his business. The persistence of Mrs. Anisa's parents made Mrs. Anisa a point of inspiration to become an entrepreneur and run her own business.
Apart from that, any networking Mrs. Anisa business is business networking meeting. She has to find a supplier who can provide the best ingredients for all three of its restaurants in Seri Kembangan, Setapak and also Gombak. Therefore, in this way, Mrs. Anisa can open her business more widely by exchanging phone numbers with the entrepreneur and offering to buy their products in the hope that they can help Mrs. Anisa business in any aspect such as advice or new knowledge. Mrs. Anisa no need to worry about important cooking ingredients such as chicken, cooking oil, sugar and also salt. Even as you already know, buying food items from wholesalers is cheaper than buying goods from retailers. This is one of the advantages that Mrs. Anisa cannot miss. Financial resources is one of the sources that Mrs. Anisa focused on when she wants to start the business. She succeeded in opening the first Onggak Cetacean restaurant in Seri Kembangan with financial help from her husband, Mr. Muhammad Nizam. Apart from that, because of Mrs. Anisa has the intention of opening a restaurant one day, she has made savings for future use to achieve her dream of opening a restaurant of her own. The second important resource is human resource. Puan Anisa is very caring about the welfare of its employees by providing sufficient training to previous employees in order they are good at working at Onggak Cetacean. In addition, every month Mrs. Anisa will also give awards and also reward in the form of ringgit money to those who get the title of Best Employee to high-performing employees in each branch. The next resources emphasized by entrepreneur Mrs. Anisa is education. Before starting the Onggak Station business, Mrs. Anisa had attended a dinner and beverage handling class so she could manage his own restaurant. In addition, she also attended several special business courses before and after starting her business. The last resources is physical resources, which is she has equipment and premise to start her business. Apart from that, any networking Mrs. Anisa business is business networking meeting. She has to find a supplier who can provide the best ingredients for all three of its restaurants in Seri Kembangan, Setapak and also Gombak. Therefore, in this way, Mrs. Anisa can open her business more widely by exchanging phone numbers with the entrepreneur and offering to buy their products in the hope that they can help Mrs. Anisa business in any aspect such as advice or new knowledge. Mrs. Anisa no need to worry about important cooking ingredients such as chicken, cooking oil, sugar and also salt. Even as you already know, buying food items from wholesalers is cheaper than buying goods from retailers. This is one of the advantages that Mrs. Anisa cannot miss.
Mrs. Anisa take her business seriously and not playing around. She put all her determination and commitment when deciding whether to open Onggak Station or not. Controlling business at early stage give hard time to Mr. Anisa. If there happen mistake, it will leave a big impact in her business. The result of being worried when controlling the business make Mr. Anisa succeed in handling all the hardest stage. Next is risk orientation at early startup. There is several risks that Mr. Anisa need to overcome. For example, is lack of employee engagement, customer, economic environment, and social culture. Mr. Anisa didn't have enough employees to complete all the tasks at the same time taking customer order. This is because her employee doesn't have any motivation in doing works. Mr. Anisa faced the risk by giving reward to the employee who excel in their work. Next is customer. Mr. Anisa need to deal with customers who have different taste buds. Mr. Anisa needs to list out the main ingredient about the dishes so that her customer can choose wisely before order. After that is economic environment. Because of economic collapse, this causes increase in price of good. In order to avoid losses, she estimating the budget for each production of food and drinks. Last but not least, social culture risk. This is because multiracial customer. She needs to serve diversifying food and drinks to understand the needs of her customer. Mr. Anisa has explored two business plans, which is target customer and strategic business plan. Target customer is an internal business plan described industry current state, including operating costs and profitability. Meanwhile, strategic business plan is giving high guidance of business goal and how to achieve them. Last but not least is prepare to start up. Mr. Anisa prepared both physical and mental before starting the business. Mr. Anisa has specific framework that will ensure she is all prepared to give the greatest for her business. Mr. Anisa find a strategic location that can influence the marketing success for her business. She also survey the budget and capital for the operating costs that need to be tolerated for her business.
So overall, now let's see the conclusion of Onggak Station Restaurant. We can really understand that to be a successful entrepreneur, it is not necessary to have experience in the business field. An entrepreneur also needs to constantly improve his entrepreneurial skills and personal qualities to continue to be successful and not become a weak entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs need to be brave in making decisions and believe in themselves in making a decision and always be positive in accepting that decision. Key success factors is important in Mrs. Anisa's business because it enables Mrs. Anisa and her employees to work together to ensure they can achieve their motives and goals and give a positive outcome to the business. A good leadership role is the another factors that lead Mrs. Anisa's business was successful. Mrs. Anisa is an entrepreneur who is very strict in making a decision. This is said to be because she is very earnest and in achieving business objectives. Thank you.